to Inside the Artist Studio. I'm Rose Fredrick, and I am thrilled to have Dianne Massey Dunbar with me, and we get to peer inside her studio. Dianne, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. And I am Dianne Massey Dunbar. This is actually my studio that is part of my home.
Yep.
And that works for me because I like to work, as you know, into the overnight hours. And so that way I can work and
You're quite the night owl, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I just enjoy the peace. My brain relaxes and I'm more productive later in the day. But before we go farther, Rose, I need to add something here.
Yeah.
I need to tell the audience that you're amazing.
Oh.
And I'm so privileged to be having this conversation with you. You're so dedicated to art and collectors and artists, and it's a privilege to be having this conversation. And I mean that from the heart. So I needed to say that.
Well, Dianne, thank you so much. You know, I just adore you. Gosh, we've known each other for a long time.
We have.
Yeah. This is like, I just love doing these conversations too, because we get to know more about each of the artists. And I always feel like after I get off the phone with somebody, I'm like, oh, I just want to share this conversation. It was so much fun. Maybe I'm just a giant nerd. I'm an art nerd.
Hey, I'll take that. That's great.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I want to dive into, so people who have watched these Inside the Artist Studios, and certainly people who have come on some of my art tours and have seen your work, and we've talked about it, and you have showed us some of these canvases in the starting phase. And I think the way you work is for today is really unique. And it's kind of a throwback to what 1400s, 1500s, when artists would do portraiture work and set up these grids. And that was their way of putting this huge grid and, you know, in the center between them and their subject to divide it up, but you get the drawing right. You're not necessarily doing it to get the drawing right, but kind of, right? You divide your canvas up into basically a checkerboard.
Exactly. And I actually have a grid here, but you are absolutely right. It is an aid to drawing. I enjoy little shapes. I enjoy the process of painting little shapes. And the only way to really efficiently draw thousands of little shapes on a canvas is for me to do it in pieces. So one of the paintings that's going to be in the show, I work from more than one photograph, but I have one main photograph that I work from, is a 30 by 30 painting. And this was actually the gridded photograph. I like the painting better than the grid. This is a 1-inch square because there's so much information in each one of these squares. I transfer the information from one square to the canvas, moving across 225 squares. Now on this particular painting, I was kind of over it on the 40th square, but I give myself credit for finishing this painting, and I love this painting. I'm happy with this painting, but it is an aid for drawing because that way I'm not trying to transfer all this all at once because I'd get lost.
Yeah. And you know what, Dianne, I'm going to do a screen share and to that painting, and then we'll come back and compare it again. Not that it's a comparison, because what I would say, you are not going after photorealism. You are interpreting in your own way, but your basis is with a photo. And granted, your photos take us to different places. So, yeah. So I want to screen share this particular image, which is called Guardians. I love that title. So here we are with Guardians, and When I click back out of it, I'll just have you hold up that photo with the grid on it again. And how many squares? 240?
225.
225 squares. Tell me the size of this painting again.
It is 30 by 30.
That's big for
Very
you.
large.
Yeah. Yeah. So that doesn't necessarily sound big to people listening, 30 by 30, but that is big for you and the way you work. I can't wait to see this one in person. What I want you to talk about with this piece, one, I think in this particular case, the title really does give me a lot of your mindset about this, what attracted you to it. But I'm wondering if you would talk about that, because this is just such, an intricate piece to take on. But also, I know when you finish each of those squares, then a lot of the heavy lifting comes in, because now you're moving shapes around and you're pushing and pulling these tiny shapes to make them all speak to each other, pull this thread through, right?
Well, yes, there is a lot involved, more than just copying the square, because it has to work as a whole. And one of the problems with this painting is I wanted to build up texture in the sky. And how am I going to do that without painting over all these branches? Because that wasn't going to happen. Once was quite enough. So I had to devise techniques for this particular painting. There's more color in this painting, surprisingly, than you see in the image, because it's subtle. But I wanted some texture and I wanted some variation of color. And I used Q-tips actually to apply semi-transparent paint in certain areas. And I had fun with it. And I had fun to make sure there was an equal distribution of blacks. And so there's more involved than just, there's refinements that happen square to square. And as I complete the painting, Guardians, I have a fondness for trees. I find trees amazing. They speak to me of strength and resilience and home, because in a way they're home to many species, including man. And they are protectors of the earth. These particular trees caught my eye about 4 years ago. They were in a stand in a abandoned lot, and I was getting gas at the gas station, and the lot was next to the gas station. And I was so intrigued by them. And they're ordinary trees, and I can't even tell you what kind of tree they are. But they were there, and I parked my car after I got my gas and did a whole photo shoot of these trees. Now, when I do a photo shoot, I may or may not create a painting out of it. Sometimes there's a moment for that painting. And it wasn't until February that I embarked on this painting, because it kept coming up. It was an open window on my computer, and my boys are all over me because I've got so many open windows. But yeah, I kept looking at this picture and contemplating it, because I knew it was going to be a lot of work to do this painting, which it was. I'm so glad I did. I almost called it In Memory of Trees, because after I did that photo shoot, about 2 years later, those trees were removed and it became a strip mall. And so they're no longer there. And I'm so glad I captured them when I did.
Yeah. I'm seeing this, on my screen as well, instead of seeing it in person. But as you're talking, and the longer I look at it, this is one of those paintings that keeps opening itself up. There are more little bits of color that I see, these just little tiny flecks of, the last remaining autumn leaf, or a sun glinting off a branch somewhere. I mean, it's just, I can only imagine, one, how painstaking it was, but also probably how joyful to just really go back in and add those little surprises throughout this painting.
Well, it was. For a while, the end result drives a painting for me, but at some point in time, I encounter things that I didn't expect, and that's the joy of painting. Then the painting drives me, and I have to get creative and have some playful moments or some problem solving moments with the painting. And that's my process. And it takes whatever it takes. This was a lengthy painting.
Yeah. Would you show us the gridded piece again too? And what are your blue painter's tape on there?
That were problems areas, and also to help me locate. And sometimes in handling of my strings, this is actually thread. So I can move, if I want to move it out of the way to see something in its entirety. Sometimes that loosens over the course of time. This is painter's tape, so that allows me to remove it if I have to see something.
Yeah, beautiful. Wonderful. Well, really gorgeous work. And I think, you know, holding it up the second time, holding your photo up, I see how you really embellish the sky, because and I think this is an important thing to bring up, is that this is really the difference between being a hyper realist and a photo realist, is that you're using realism, but then you are pushing it, and you are very subtle in your work. Other artists, you know, push things to surrealism. You're more subtle, but I do see in this the motion in the sky, and that beautiful winter day of how a storm is possibly brewing on the horizon, but for right now we're okay, you know, that sense.
And I wanted to get, thank you, and I wanted to get the sense that there was actually movement in the air.
Yeah.
The sky initially was a little flat. And so that's why I kept embellishing it. And then if I'd get too heavy handed, I'd have to back off. And a painting for me is a process. And I kind of sort of know where I want to end up, but I don't know what that process is going to be. And I don't know what may change in the course of that process.
Yeah. So behind you is a brand new painting that we're also getting. And I need to emphasize that it's probably pretty obvious, but Dianne works rather slowly. To get two big paintings I'm thrilled. I'm really thrilled. So this painting is called Midsummer, and I'm going to do a screen share on this one too. And this piece, you know, we'll just let people know that this one is richer in color when you see it in person, but I want to be able to just kind of dive into it a little bit closer up as you talk about it. But so these are petunias, Midsummer. Would you talk about why you decided to dive us right into a patch of petunias like this?
You know, I loved what the light was doing with this. Now, these petunias I actually planted, it was probably the end of May on my balcony. And so I'd go out there and dutifully water them and watch them. And I really thought there would only be the tree painting in the show. I was up against a deadline, and I had some time left over. So I was excited. I thought maybe I could get this finished on the deadline. And Rose, I put the last brushstroke on it yesterday. So it'll be formally photographed tomorrow. I really like the cascade of leaves. I really like the way the light hit. And that's what this painting is about, is the light hitting those flowers.
Yeah. And you get the sense of that papery flower, you know, with the shadow coming through. And, you know, I mean, for me, you know, Dianne, I feel like your paintings have such a poetry to them, and that they are, this is me reading into them, but that they are about so much more than trees and petunias, that they're speaking to this moment in your life and where you are with what's going on in your life, and the pressures, and the, you know, and the joy of just being able to sit in your studio and paint.
Well, that's true. And at the end of the day, I want to create something beautiful. And I love the word that you use, poetic. I really loved in the Midsummer the way the light is hitting, because petunias have that kind of fuzzy
Yeah.
areas to them, and I thought that that worked well. I would hope that people would almost want to pick the petunia right there.
Yeah.
This was a joyful, yes, it was work. All my paintings are work. As a matter of fact, that's probably true of all artists. We don't wait to go into a seance and art just happens.
Right.
It's accumulation of a lot of paintings and a lot of work to get there. But I'm happy with this painting, and I'm glad I'm going to have and it's only 16 by 16. The other one's 30 by 30. This is 16 by 16. But I'm glad I was able to finish it up in time.
Yeah. You know, I think too about that painting. I love the story that was on your balcony, so it's another.
I got to visit them every day until we discover a wasp nest out there, and then I had to take a break for a while.
Yeah. But it's another little just glimpse inside your studio, and I think for those of us, I live in a condo, and I think like you, a conscious decision to not mow lawns and not shovel sidewalks anymore. And, so, but to have that, area where you can, like, I do miss gardening. That is something I'll admit to, so I've got my house is filled with potted plants, and, like you, to have these beautiful petunias on your balcony too. It's inspirational. It's keeps you in touch, right?
Well, my paintings are personal. It's kind of like storytelling. So I find something that resonates with me or resonates with my past, or I'm sometimes sentimental with my work. I was involved with these petunias. I watered them every day. I looked at them every day. They mattered to me.
Yeah.
The trees mattered to me. So their stories there that are worth speaking to for me, which is why I paint them.
So behind that painting of petunias is a rather large board.
Yay! I'm going to be gessoing it, folks, in probably 2 weeks, and that it's a 40 by 40. I've never taken on a 40 by 40, so that's going to be some time, but stay tuned because it's going to become a painting, and I'm researching subject matter as we talk.
Oh, so you're not sure what is going to be on that.
I have a pretty good idea, but I need to start diving deep because it's going to be a time-consuming project, and I really have to contemplate if I'm going to be able to reach the top. I think I'm going to have to sit it on the floor to begin to work from the top, because 30 is pushing it, but I don't know about 40.
Wow. I suppose the way you work, you could turn it upside down and turn your grid upside down.
That's a thought. I'll figure it out.
Oh, for sure. That would be fascinating, though. It's so like the way you work frees you up to
It does
do things differently. It's I always love talking about the way you work, and I usually don't, me, I don't love talking about the way people work necessarily, because it's everybody kind of does the same thing. So what makes you unique? But I think the way your brain sorts through those grids and the patience that it would take. Like I always think when I look at your work, I would be an abstract expressionist, because I would never, I would get one grid and then it would be all abstract expressionism after that.
I am patient at work. I'm not necessarily patient when I get behind the lady driving 30 miles an hour on the road, but I am patient when I work. Yeah. And I like little shapes, as I've said. And for some reason, I have a knack for matching color. I don't make a big batch of blue that's going to survive an entire painting like the Guardians. I mix the paint of the day, but then I've got to go back and remix a color that's going to be in the adjoining square, and I seem to be able to do that fairly successfully. But I like working this way, and it allows me the opportunity to draw things accurately and also expressively.
Yeah. You know, so I hadn't thought of that, but I do remember you showing me that you do mix a small amount of paint because you do paint very slowly. So you can't mix a whole bunch of oil paint. It will dry up. You'll waste paint.
It'll get tacky and nasty, and no, I mix up enough for the day, and I'm constantly mixing it up. So the painting somehow comes together. And if I think I'm a little off, I'll dab some here and I'll dab some there. And so it's a matter of integrating all these little shapes that become bigger shapes that become the painting.
Wow. This is so spectacular, Dianne. I just love seeing what comes out of your studio because you always surprise me. You're not somebody who puts boundaries on yourself and the subject matter, that because you paint Lego toys, you've painted hamburgers, you painted, it's just, I just love that, the surprise of what's going to come out of Dianne's studio. And to me, you don't fall back on tried and true ever. You're such a searching soul. And really, I mean, with the length of time it takes, I mean, realistically, like how long does it take you to finish a painting?
Well, it depends upon size and complexity. The tree painting I had set aside 4 to 5 months. It took longer than that because I had other things I had to deal with during the process of doing that painting. So actually I finished that, I think, in early October.
Wow.
So it was a long journey on that painting. And I probably won't take on something that complex in the very near future. This one moved along a little bit quicker. There's still a lot going on with this painting, but it's not near as complex. And these leaves were deliberately heightened. I've got the grid on this.
Oh.
And that's a judgment. Here's the grid.
Wow.
So you don't see near the leaves. I heighten these because I just really love these plants being in the middle of all these leaves and all this stuff growing.
Wow.
So this too is a grid, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
When I do my Legos and the hamburger and my Coke bottles, those are done in the traditional style of still lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. So you just, do you switch them out so you'll give yourself a break and do a series of Coke bottles or something, or Legos, because you don't have to do the painstakingly long grid process?
I'm going to probably, if I dive into this big 40 by 40, I'll probably move back to a grid.
Yeah.
But I want to explore a brand new subject, which I'm not going to announce first, which will not be gridded. So
I was gonna ask you to tease us.
But you're right. I'm always searching.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always searching, and I'm all over the map with subject matter because I started to say it's kind of like you being a writer, because I'm not sure people understand that paintings are a form of communication.
Yes.
It's more than just a landscape. It's a form of communication from the artist to the viewer, and what the viewer takes away, the viewer takes away. But if I were going to write a book, let's say a book on the mating habits of whales, or my travels through Greece, or my life as an artist, I probably could do the mating habits of whales, but I'd have to research the mating habits of whales to be able to be intelligent about it. I paint what I'm familiar with, what I love, what I care about.
Yeah.
What I care about and what I want to talk about to a viewer. So these petunias I enjoyed. They were part of my world for until recently. And I wanted that to come across in this painting, and those trees caught my attention.
Mm-hmm. And that they're not there. Neither subject is there.
Neither are there. So in memory of flowers and in memory of those trees.
And really that's life, right?
Isn't that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We tell these stories, and I think you're so fortunate in a sense that your stories will live on far beyond you, far beyond me, with any luck.
Well, I hope so. That's every artist's hope.
Mm-hmm.
That at the end of the day, what we do leaves a legacy.
Yeah.
Or leaves behind stories.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of the point of this. And the story might just be the way the light is hitting these flowers.
Mm-hmm.
The story might be the way yellow and purple interact with each other. The story might be the way the texture builds up on the tree painting.
And
so
you
there's
know,
various stories that come out of painting.
but I think too, the story is also a woman in this stage in her career, and her masterful approach to it, and your unique approach to it, and what you're saying about life at this point, you know, and what's important. These really, they're very complex, but they're also really quite simple.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Dianne, I really just want to thank you. I so appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And I hope you know I'm going to be ringing your doorbell as soon as you start that gigantic canvas, right?
I'm excited about it. I'm excited about starting this. So
I'm excited for you.
And one day, because I don't envision, I will say this much, one day I really want to do a huge rain on windshield, but that's not going to be this one, I don't think.
Okay.
So I'm playing with different subject matters, and we'll see what I land on.
Wow. Okay. All right. You're just staying mum about what we're going to see, but I'm going to keep bugging you.
My privilege if you do that. So thank you.
Oh, good. All right, Dianne, thank you again. We will look forward to seeing these two pieces at Gallery 1261 in our Naturalism Now show. I'm so grateful that you could be in that show and give us two spectacular pieces. So you can find out more at the Gallery 1261 website and also on the ArtSol. And we will see you in December. And I just, again, I can't wait to see these in person. This is my Christmas when all the artwork comes in.
Well, it's a beautiful show. So thank you and 1261 for assembling it, because it's amazing to hang on the wall with all these other fabulous artists, and it promises to be special. And so I'm looking forward to attending the opening and seeing all the other pieces.
Oh, good. Oh, good, good. Okay. Dianne will be at the opening. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you. Same to you. Happy holidays. And I'm sure we'll be talking very soon. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.